Is this thing on? Welcome back, everyone, to the Summits Podcast. As you can see, not in the studio today. Very happy to be here at what I call God's Country, otherwise known as Memorial Stadium at Indiana University. And pleased to be joined today by none other than the Athletic Director of Indiana University, Mr. Scott Dolson. Scott,
hey, thanks, Vince. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you coming down.
Love coming down. I don't
That's
need any
awesome.
more excuses to come down here.
That's awesome.
Before we get started, I wanted to touch on the fact, as you can see also, that my co-host, Daniel, kind of the Robin to my Batman, if you will, which he won't appreciate, is not here today. We are all thinking of he and his wife on their pending birth of twins. By the time this is released, hopefully they will be proud parents. I also was a little disappointed he's not here today because as a Purdue grad, as you guys know, it's been really great to have him sitting here in this surrounding and having to deal with it. So anyway, I think he's really just scared of coming down, but you know, a birth of twins, I guess, is a decent excuse. All right, so for Scott, when I think of Scott, I think of Mr. Indiana. Scott's been here. This is year 37, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would, kind of, before we get to the Indiana piece, tell us about, like, you know, the young Scott, where you're from, where did you grow up, things like that.
Well, Vince, you know, it's interesting you say Mr. Indiana. That's funny. I laughed when you said that because the reality is, I grew up a huge IU fan. I grew up in northern Indiana, a town called Michigan City, right up on the lake. And actually, my grandfather went to IU and unfortunately could only come to IU for a year and had to go back home to work and just didn't have the money to stay.
Sure.
But it was a really big thing for him that my sister and I, number one, we go to college, but he just talked about IU all the time. And he introduced me to IU sports. And I remember watching in 1975 when our basketball program was rolling, obviously. You know, we get beat, and I've said this before, we got beat by Kentucky in the Elite Eight.
Yep.
You know, we were undefeated. And just experiencing that with my grandfather, I was 8 years old, and it just was, you know, I think at that point, you know, I just had so much emotion for IU at such a young age. And then just seeing his reaction when we lost, I remember how devastated he was.
Right.
And then, of course, we came back and won the national championship the next year, 76. And for me, that was kind of it. And it was a dream of mine to play for IU. Like a lot of kids in the state of Indiana.
Sure.
Had a little talent problem. Wasn't quite good enough to play, but it's so funny how things sort of work out. And my best friend in high school was the #1 player in the country, a guy named Delray Brooks, who was Mr. Basketball. Yep. And, you know, we were kind of one of those package deals in a way. I was coming here anyway. When he chose to come here and play for Coach Knight, Steve Alford's roommate was actually a manager for the team. Okay. And Delray said, hey, you love IU basketball more than anybody I know. Wouldn't that be cool if you would do that? And it just sort of went from there, and I've never left. And he actually transferred, went to Providence. They made the Final Four in 1987. When we were there, we beat UNLV. They lost to Syracuse, and of course, we won the championship. It was just kind of a unreal situation.
You didn't taunt him off after that, did you?
No, I definitely didn't. I was hoping they would win. It would have been interesting to play Providence in the championship.
Sure.
But in a way, I was kind of glad we didn't we didn't play each other because I certainly was pulling for him as well.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly glad you stayed here and didn't transfer as well.
Well, I tell you, Coach Knight, I was worried about that when it was funny because when Delray transferred, it was halfway through our sophomore year. I remember coming back to practice the day after he transferred, and I ran into Coach Knight, and he kind of looked at me and he said, "You're still here?" And I said, "That's good, isn't it?" And he said, "Well, we'll see about that." So it's kind of funny that I'm still here.
That's
but
fitting.
I feel very, very fortunate to have the opportunity to be here for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know, speaking on behalf of the entire alumni base, we're damn glad you stayed. We're damn glad you're still here as well.
I appreciate that.
We were talking about this beforehand. hiring someone for a job based on skill set alone, I think, is the easy part. The hard part is finding someone who not only has the skill set to do the job, but if they bring a passion along with it, like that's hard to find. And there's no question that you have both the skill set as well as the passion. So I'm very happy that you're in the position that you're in now. I think doesn't matter what I think, but I think it was an obvious choice, and I think I'm just excited to see what happens over the next 5 to 10 years for sure.
Well, that means a lot, and I feel very, very, very fortunate. I've always felt fortunate to work here, because when you work at a place you love, that's an old, it's a cliche. You can see all the cliches in the world, but for me, to be at a place that I do have a passion for, that I believe in our mission, I've benefited from that mission, so to be able to continue that and continue to have a role is something I don't take for granted, and I really, really appreciate, for sure.
Yep, awesome. So there's a line by Drake's that says, "Start at the bottom, now we're here." As you mentioned, you started as a student manager back in the '80s. What was the progression from there to today?
It was really interesting, because I didn't realize at the time, Vince, but just being a manager really prepared me for today. And you're young, and you're just working, you're trying to learn and get by, I guess, as best you can, and I just didn't realize all the opportunities that were there. Over time, I started to really, as I kind of grew, I guess, or evolved, there was just things that just happened that were amazing that it helped me in my job today. So, as you said, I was a manager, and that was an incredible opportunity from a leadership standpoint. And then I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I was trying to figure it out.
Sure.
And Tim Knight, who's Coach Knight's oldest son, he asked me to join him. It was Tim Knight Enterprises. I was a vice president, and he was the president. It was the only two of us working out of his living room, so it was kind of funny. But we ran all Coach Knight's businesses, his camps, his clinics, his apparel sales, the Bob Knight sweater.
Sure.
And so Tim was incredible, still is, has a business mind. And for me, it kept me in Bloomington, and I learned a ton about the business side of athletics.
Sure.
And it really was, again, as I look back, there would be a day that I was working at Bob Knight's camp with little kids, and then maybe the next day, Tim and I are going to meet the CEO of Coca-Cola selling a sponsorship for Bob Knight's clinics. And so it was really, really great. And then I was fortunate enough to get a job here in athletics with the varsity club, which again was another just opportunistic time for me, because when you're in fundraising, you get to learn a little bit about everything. Mm-hmm. Because you have to know whether it's compliance, whether it's marketing, whether it's how our academic side works. So I was able to really learn a lot in that role. And then at the same time, travel the state of Indiana, meet alumni everywhere, make really strong bonds that really have been huge for me, and for, most importantly, for IU Athletics. And then I was just able to grow. And there were people who came in to my life from a professional standpoint, and really leading up to Fred Glass, who, when he took over, was named AD, promoted me to Deputy Athletic Director, and again, just couldn't have had a more perfect opportunity for me to really learn, to really not be in the chair, but to be right next to him. And to his credit, he wanted to make certain I was in on everything. And he's such a great leader, and I learned a lot just from him professionally, but again, just having that experience was great. So I feel like I've been preparing for this role for a long, long time, to be honest with you, and again, feel really fortunate to have it.
Oh, that's great. You've been asked this, I'm sure, multiple times, and so I won't harp on it too much, but year one was probably not exactly the way you drew it up. Certainly not the way any of us drew it up. How would you, looking back now, and not that we're out of it by any means, but how would you look back on year one now? And what would you say, and we already know all about the pandemic, but what would you say was the one thing, if you had to pick one thing, that stands out to you the most about your first year?
I would say that, like everybody thinks, like you're alluding to, I hated that we're in this situation like everybody. It's just horrific for so many families and the lives that were affected and have continued to be affected by the pandemic. But for me, assuming this role during this time, actually, when you're dealt certain cards, you just got to play them the best you can.
Sure.
And for me, I think my growth into the role, the development of our team, although I'd been here and taking over for Fred, it wasn't new in terms of the people, but because there was so much coming at us and so much, it's like we were changing the tires on a car while we were going down the highway, that I think it helped me develop and to really hit a rhythm really early. And I learned a ton. We had, and I've said this publicly before, but we had athletic director conference calls, Zoom calls every day for 9 months straight. with all my colleagues, so the 13 other athletic directors and Commissioner Warren and a couple other Big Ten staff members. And for me to have the opportunity to be every morning it was like Groundhog's Day. Every morning from 8 to 9:30, I'm on a Zoom call, and it's Barry Alvarez from Wisconsin. He and I were the first two on every call every day. We always were on at 10 till 8, and everybody else kind of. And so I talked to him. We just joked about that the other night, and just to learn from them and realize the Big Ten is such a close conference. I knew that, but it was really for us to work through the challenges together was great. And again, as a young AD, not young to the business, it helped me establish relationships that would have taken a little longer to do because I was thrown into it and with so much going on. And Mike Babinski from Purdue, for example, he and I are extremely close and talk regularly. We want to beat them, they want to beat us.
Right.
But at the same time, we all work together, and he's been extremely helpful as I've transitioned in, and we've tried to work through all the challenges that we've had.
Yeah, that's great. I would imagine, like a lot of businesses, though, have had to rethink certain things. And so the challenge that the pandemic has brought about has actually uncovered opportunities that might otherwise not have been looked at.
Vince, it's a great point. I think we're much better organizationally. We've restructured. We've had some real challenges. It's never easy to, we've cut 32 positions, and that's saved us about $2 million a year, and that's part of our financial stabilization plan. We have to be able to make it financially, and like a lot of businesses, when you go through a challenge like everybody's been through, at times you have to reinvent yourself, and we've done that. I feel like we're really strong. I feel like we have a really good culture. I think we've learned really to focus on our priorities and to make certain, in terms of resources, we maximize those, human resources and financial resources. And I'm really proud of our staff. I think we've done a good job of that.
Yeah, awesome. My personal one word for IU athletics right now is momentum. And the reason why I say that is because you see all the progress that Coach Allen and the IU football staff have done with that part of the program. Woody coming in, I mean, this might date me a little bit, but I still think of Mike Woodson as my camp counselor when I was a kid up in Indy, and seeing him come down here and what I think there was probably a lot of people who were in the middle where it's like weren't sure, like, Mike Woodson, that's awesome, can he be a good head coach? Don't know, but like I think in very short order, a lot of those folks in the middle are now on that side of the fence where, he's got this thing rolling in the right direction. And then you see the men's soccer program, the girls basketball program. My youngest daughter, I've brought to a couple of IU basketball girls games and loves it. So I just think there's a lot of momentum going on right now across the spectrum of IU athletics, and it's really exciting.
I appreciate you saying that, and it is funny, Vince, because that is a word that we talk about. We talk about momentum. We talk about, it's important for us that there's hope. And you talked about hiring Woody. I think one of the big things for us is we wanted, I'm a field person. We wanted, most importantly, our players, and then our department, and then Hoosier Nation to feel hope and to feel there's a vision. And I think if you have a vision and you work that vision, you create that belief, and you can see what Tom Allen has done in football, that is really what we're trying to do for the whole department. And one of the things that we talk about a lot too, if my staff were sitting up here with us, I say a lot that we want to underpromise and overdeliver. Even though I talk a lot with my job, and I feel like I'm talking about our momentum and trying to make certain people know where we are, your reputation is built on what you do, not what you say you're going to do. And internally, we want to make certain that we're getting the job done, and that the momentum is great, but it's all about results. And we focus on those priorities and making certain that we're focused on maximizing the opportunity for our student athletes. And I do feel, and it's great that you feel that way, as I'm around our student athletes, I love the feel that they have. Even though we've been through such a tough time, I'm so proud of how they handled this year. And I could go from team to team and just give you examples where they really believe, they're really working hard, and I think they've created that momentum and hope, which is really important.
Yeah, I would also say that I think the whole LEO mentality has now gone beyond the football program, has probably spread throughout the athletic department, and I like that whole mantra, that feel, and I think that'll pay dividends for sure.
I'm glad you feel that way, because that's what, and I give Tom so much credit, because Tom is much more than what people see, even though what they see is awesome. You know, he's obviously one of the best coaches in the country. He's been recognized as that. You know, he's what he's done for football is amazing. But as you mentioned, for our department and for our university, for the state of Indiana, he's really become really a symbol in a lot of ways. And we try to, you know, build on what he's created for the whole department and talk about that a lot. It's really important to us.
Yep. So going to kind of really what the foundation of this podcast and where it comes from as part of the Heroes Foundation. Scott, what is your cancer story?
Yeah, fortunately, like most families, everybody has one.
Right.
And, you know, we've got several in our family, you know, starting with my wife, who, you know, I've got so much respect for. She had 2 battles with breast cancer, and just, you know, was by her side as she went through that. And, you know, you think you've got challenges at work some days, and you hate that you have to go through something like that to put things in perspective, because you think that you just recognize that every day. But just watching her, and, you know, whether it's being stuck with needles as you're going through treatment and all the different things that I remember her saying at one point, you just sort of put that aside, and it just, you sort of become, that's your new way of life. And things that used to be challenging, or just everyone's always poking or prodding or doing something.
Right.
And just to watch her go through that was, you know, inspiration, but also just so meaningful for me to understand how many people out there in the healthcare system are really doing everything they can to make people better. And her treatment, her doctors, nurses, everybody was just awesome. And that just was really a neat impact for me to watch that and to watch her go through it. And then her brother, my brother-in-law, is going through, you know, challenges right now with that. And so he's had a really tough battle with cancer as well. And so just watching him, and then his father, my father-in-law, my wife's father, has been through some challenges as well. So, you know, when you see that, and again, unfortunately, everybody's got their story, it makes me appreciate what you're doing, you know, with the Heroes Foundation, what so many people out there are doing to help people. And as I said, the healthcare system, to me, when you talk about people and the impact that they have on people's lives and how much they care, it's not a job for those people, and you see it, and we felt it. So it means a lot that what you're doing, you having me on this, and I just appreciate everybody who is supporting the Heroes Foundation and trying to make a difference, for sure. And I know my family appreciates it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so Scott, for those that our viewers that don't know, Scott's brother-in-law, Andy, is a good buddy of mine. We're roommates senior year down here at IU, in a pretty tough battle right now. So, Andy, we just want you to know we're all thinking about you, man. We as always, have your back, and we love you.